Hello and welcome back to the She Who Dares Wins podcast. My guest today is Jess. Jess, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, it's great to be here.
Thank you. All right, so first question, She Who Dares Wins. Can you tell me about when you've dared and won?
So, a good few years ago now, I started in the Falconry world, which is obviously massively male-dominated, and started flying eagles, vultures, every bird of prey that you can possibly imagine, and turned it into a full-time job. So, all over the country, doing loads of different things, flying everything from kestrels to Stella's sea eagles alongside my cousin Ben. But yeah, so...
Pretty daring. So did you have an interest in birds? Was there a time where you went and saw a show or something? Like, how did that start?
So my mother, she took me over to what's called Scion Hall Bird of Prey Centre over in Thirsk, and that's where my cousin Ben then worked. We walked around and there was a little white falcon, and it was actually called Cloud Dancer. And I took a liking to it. I watched the display, watched Ben fly these eagles and vultures and stuff, and we're just taken away by it. And I think I was probably only about 8 years old then. So it kind of led on from there. I was a girl and I had 5 brothers. So it was a massively male-dominated environment in my household. 2 older brothers, 2 younger brothers. So I didn't really have my own thing. They were into all the motorbikes and like little off-road cars and things like that. I didn't have my own little, hobby. So then when I saw the birds, and I always got along really well with Ben, that then turned into my thing. And then I started going over to Ben's when I was around 12-year-old. And in between that, he came and did a bird of prey display for my 10th birthday at my primary school.
Oh, wow.
So obviously, I was mind blown that he'd brought these birds all the way over to my little primary school and let me hold them in front of all my friends. So the coolest girl around, got to walk around with this little falcon. And then I started basically living with him from being about 13 years old, because we had a bit of disruption in our household where my dad passed away when I was 9. Then Ben came, did the bird of prey display literally a couple of months after, and he kind of stepped in. My other brothers went to different places. I ended up going to Ben's with the birds, and I'd spend the vast majority of time there. I missed quite a lot of school, just travelling around the country doing these bird of prey displays with him.
Oh, wow.
So when I was about 14 years old, I'd be flying bald eagles and things like that in like Great Yorkshire Show and stuff with Ben. So,
oh, wow. So
yeah.
a small, early introduction into it, and then you're just hooked.
Yeah, I got thrown straight into the deep end. Yeah, there was none of this, train a falcon here, there, or everywhere. It was, put that glove on, pick this up, go over there type thing with an 8-foot wingspan. So.
Wow. So he is, I guess, like a massive influence on you. And what was that like for him? Did he, have any reservations about taking a young girl and doing...
I don't really think he had much of a choice. I think It was more a case of my mum, she was in a new relationship. Didn't really have a great deal of time for her. She was working full time. My older brothers, we all went in separate directions, spending a lot of time with different family members. So when it came time where I was spending, say, a couple of days here and there at Ben's, I basically moved quite a lot of my stuff over there. So he had a Kawasaki Ninja at the time, and I'd be sat on the back seat, which was about that big, strapped on, holding onto him all the way over to Perth for an hour at a time. But again, I was the coolest person around because I'd be getting picked up from a park by my cousin on a Kawasaki Ninja, then go over there. But no, I don't think he had much of a choice in that scenario, because at first I got dumped on him.
Right, okay.
And he kind of dealt with it, but he dealt with it in a really good way. I just kind of tagged along with the training, with going and doing the displays and things like that. And it was very much a case of, I was a really quiet, timid child, and he'd always introduce me to his friends as, that's Jess, you don't talk, and then move on. And I'd just be sat there in the corner. But over time, it got me into a position of I had to learn how to be confident, because I was thrown in front of, hundreds, if not thousands of people sometimes, where you were forced to talk. You had to talk to, fit in, to be involved and be a good showman type thing. I wouldn't be doing the talking in the displays, but I'd be doing the talking when we'd get the eagles and the vultures back at the stand,
right,
when all the audience would come over and start talking. So it forced me out of my shell that I was in for a long time, with the things going on at home. But yet, so the environment at Ben's was very male dominated. So there was Ben himself, then he had a couple of staff members called Joe and Benji, and then all his falconry friends that had come, you know, to see birds or help out with birds, they were all men, massively male dominated. And there was me, like this 13, 14-year-old girl just bimbling about, you know, doing my own thing.
I love that because I really resonate with that in being trapped in a man's world in construction. I was thinking about this the other day. I was incredibly quiet. Someone said to me, like, you do all this stuff now. And I was like, my parents were really worried about me when I was a kid because I just didn't talk to anyone.
Yeah.
And it's quite, I'm finding this really common is that, like, really shy girls, actually the trajectory of, like, confidence, if it's, like, little steps, can be massive.
100%, yeah. If you'd have seen me, you know, when I was like 13 or 14, I would not say boo to a goose. I'd be sat in a corner, wouldn't talk to anyone, wouldn't make eye contact with anyone just to avoid any kind of attention on me. Whereas, obviously, when you are thrown into that, and he didn't give me a choice. He knew that if I stayed like that, I wouldn't be any good to anyone.
Yeah.
So, and obviously in the show world, and like doing those displays and stuff, it would not work.
Yeah.
You know, being that quiet person, you wouldn't get anywhere. So you had to grow confidence. You had to start talking to people, and he would just throw me out there and put me in really awkward situations at times where we'd have a big crowd there at the static display, and he'd be like, "Off for a piss," you know? And I'd be like, "Thanks," but I'd have no choice because you can't physically just stand there and do nothing like I wanted to, because there'd be people there, you know, saying like, "What's that? What does this do? What does that do?" You know. So you have. I was kicked out my shell by him, which, you know, I massively appreciate him for, because I wouldn't have got anywhere in life if I wasn't forced out of that.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's confidence, like speaking to people, but then I imagine confidence in the work as well of like dealing with, we're not talking small things here, we're talking massive.
Oh, yeah, they're huge, yeah. But, you know, confidence in... So I'm a mega confident person in the bird of prey world. I'm confident with anything, you know, tiny falcons all the way up to eagles and things. But again, I was thrown into that.
Yeah.
So if I was going to stay in my comfort zone with types of birds, I'd have stayed with some smaller little falcons and things like that. Whereas, again, Ben flew eagles, he flew vultures, and that was where the majority of money came in from. So that I was forced into handling them. There wasn't a choice of slowly progressing into something a little bit bigger if I wanted to at a time that I felt comfortable at.
Right.
It was pick that up, move that, go do that. So, and I think, again, if I wasn't forced, I maybe wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
So it's been a massive help. Like this year we've hatched 3 bald eagles out. And again, I'll be keeping a male bald eagle back to be flying that myself. And it's one of those things where I wouldn't have known how to do that, or, you know, had the knowledge or experience or anything to be able to allow me to do that if I wasn't forced in the first place. So
Did you make the transition then from working with Ben to then going out on your own, or are you still with him? Like, what's your position now?
In 2014, I set up on my own, sole trader. I got all my own contracts, do all my own things, turning over mass amounts of money, and then obviously COVID hit and we started to plummet. We still maintained going to sites every day in COVID because of it being a necessity for a lot of sites. So I travel all over the country. Like, I'm down in Peterborough twice every single week, Scarborough, Hull, Darlington, all these different places, and they're majority my own sites. But then, because say I'll be in an area that's like Scarborough, if Ben's got a site that's in Scarborough, I'll then cover that site, and we mix and match with each other.
Okay,
So
cool.
We're not tied in together business-wise, but we'll help each other out.
Share each other's. So as well as the shows then, from a business perspective, you were saying that the shows have kind of reduced a little bit.
Yeah, so the show's basically plummeted, and alongside that, a license came in called the Animal Activities License. That was brought about to stop puppy farming, basically,
Right.
but it covered like a blanket of all animals, and that, you know, then brought into a lot of questions about birds of prey being used for display and the competency of the people doing it.
Right.
So to be able to display birds to the public now, you have to have this license. I've got the license, but because of that, a lot of like falconry displays have disappeared. And I got told the other day that the show that we used to do, the Great Yorkshire Show, so we'd be flying massive eagles and vultures around. last year, it was done by someone in the ring that was holding a teddy owl on her arm instead. So this is where it's gone.
This is health and safety gone mad.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane.
So,
But
like...
they've been making a killing, though. Well,
I know. I mean, to be fair, to be paid to turn up, we're like...
yeah.
I mean, there's so many questions. Like, people must be like, "What the fuck is going on here?"
Why even bother with an owl? Just any old teddy will do.
Oh my god! Yeah, like, can it fly? And it just plops off.
Yeah.
Oh, that's madness.
Yeah.
Because people need to see these like amazing animals.
Yeah.
Like, I've been like looking through your Instagram, and they're so cute.
Oh,
these
the chicks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But
then
not anymore. They're feisty.
I was
going
gonna say they go massive. So look, the danger element of your job, when we were chatting on site, there is a danger element.
Yeah.
So have you had any kind of like hairy, scary experiences with birds?
Oh, 100%. So it's a good job for makeup. So I've got makeup on now, but if I took it off, I've got scars on my eyelid and my nose. I've got scars like on my gums, everything been whacked in the face.
Wow.
I've got scars all over my arms. My cousin, he's had a real nasty one. We had a white-tailed sea eagle, and he got whacked in the head. And his one-liner at every show was, "This bird picked me up like a 14-stone salmon and shook me."
Jeez.
And it did. You know, all he did was turn his back on it. But it was a bit of a mixed-up bird itself. You know, it came from a zoo. It had a bad background. So because of that, it wasn't like the full-price bird. So we got it imported, started training it. And it wasn't until you started training this monstrous thing that his really bad attitude came out. And it obviously came out a little bit too late. And shook him like a salmon.
And this was at a show?
No, this was when we were training at home, but
Right.
there was times during shows where you'd be thinking, it's going to get a little bit hairy here, we're going to put that back and get something else out. But no, I think everyone that's involved with birds of prey, big or small, you know, they've got a lot of spiky things on them. So you need to bear that in mind and just act cautiously, because if it could go wrong, it probably will go wrong.
Right.
But obviously, the bigger, the more damage, normally. But
What's the biggest bird then that you kind of
so
handle?
at the minute, we don't fly them anymore, but they're paired up together. We don't fly them because we don't do the big displays anymore with these guys. But they're paired up. They're Stella's sea eagles.
Right.
So like the big, monstrous-looking pterodactyl things, the black and white, really big beak. They look very much something you'd see in the dinosaur era.
Right.
They haven't really changed much. You could ride these things around.
Wow.
And but yeah, there's them. We've got bald eagles. Then we pretty much every eagle that you can get in the UK we've flown and done displays with. So, but obviously when you get a bird directly from its parents and it hasn't got that past of any potential neglect or abuse or anything like that. It's same as a dog. If you get a second-hand dog, you don't know what's happened to it.
Yeah.
But eagles, they're very much the same. Falcons and hawks, the smaller stuff, can be a little bit more forgiving. Whereas an eagle, because it attaches to people differently than, say, a hawk or a falcon, they really hold on to any resentment, any past trauma and experiences, and they can just come out really randomly.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, and when it does come out, it really comes out. So there can be times, say for instance, so height is kind of a hierarchy in the bird world. So you'd fly a big eagle to like a tea perch, it'd fly, it'd land. If that food gets knocked on the floor and the bird's on the ground, it automatically assumes that you might be predating on it because you're sat higher than it.
Ah.
So that's why you try and get them to land a little bit higher. So when it's on the ground, it's tango time. You know, you've got to get out of the way. But that again, if it's a nice fresh bird, if it lands on the ground, you might not have any problems because it hasn't had any trauma, any like dominance or predation or what it assumed to be predation. But the older ones, they can have problems, and that's when you have problems.
Right.
So
There's no therapy then for birds.
no, not really. No, you try and make things as straightforward as possible. You know, really easygoing, chilled, relaxed. Do things really slowly, like training wise, and 9 times out of 10 you'll pick up on bad traits before they come out. But yeah, there is normally something there. Because the other thing as well is in the UK, anybody can go and buy the world's biggest eagle and stick it in the backyard legally.
Really?
Legally, yeah. Bearing in mind, you know, a bald eagle, this is what we've bred. A bald eagle's feet has more PSI than a polar bear's jaw. and you can go and buy these, take them, live in a council estate, built up area, wherever you want. You can go and fly it in your public park if you want with kids around. And this is completely
no
legal.
license
Nothing whatsoever.
So what are the restrictions in the industry then?
In regards to buying birds and flying birds, nothing whatsoever.
So you don't need any formal training?
Nope. No, so over in America, it's a lot better. You have to be kind of like an apprentice. I think it's for like 4 years. You have to be working under someone, shadowing someone for ages, for 4 years, and then you'll go and wild take your own bird. So you'll trap your own bird, then you'll train your own bird. And this is all whilst being, overseen by someone more experienced than you. So it's really hands-on over there, whereas here, so places like the Hawk Board or the Raptor Awards and things, they'll advise, go volunteer at your local centre, but no one has to do anything. You can legally go and buy the world's biggest eagle, obviously providing that the breeder will sell it to you, but you could go on Google and be like, right, yeah, this is the kind of thing that I need to say to make this guy think that I've done this for a long time. Go buy it, hand the money over, and you're walking around with a weapon.
I was going to say, they're killing machines.
Yeah, yeah, of course they are, yeah. In the wrong hands, there's no limit to what that could do. Absolutely no limit.
That's scary and fascinating at the same point.
Yeah.
And with the general public, what we were talking on site about kind of people's perceptions about this world and using the birds for pest control.
Yeah.
Is that something that you've been challenged by, like attitudes of general public?
So as a whole, no, because it's kind of seen as a natural deterrent, isn't it? So for a lot of people, they'd prefer seeing a peregrine fly to disperse gulls or whatever as the better option to anything being shot.
Yeah.
So it's a positive in that way, but then when you look at it a little bit closer, sometimes you do need some lethal deterrent to kind of reinforce what that falcon's doing. Mm-hmm. So that's when you go to like Natural England and you can apply for licenses to do that lethal deterrent. That's when you get problems. Because regardless of being legal and licensed, if the wrong person sees that, you will have the police rung on you.
Right.
And that's pretty immediate. I've had it happen, and within an hour, there's a wildlife officer ringing me.
Oh, wow.
So
tracking you down.
Yeah. But again, it's one of those. People don't see the entire story, do they? They don't see why we're doing this in the first place. They don't see the repercussions of what them birds are doing on site, or why we have had to go to that extent of using lethal deterrent. So,
well, for someone who worked on landfill for the years, like I have been shat on so many times by seagull, like they are the rats of the sky, and so like having someone like you turn up is like, yes, a blessing. But not only that, I didn't realise. So I once a month go and do some compost heap surveying, and when I saw you, you said that the reason why they want the gulls kind of dispersed is because they're finding salmonella in the compost. And then I was like, shit, like I've touched the compost and gone, and then I literally had paranoia the rest of that day. I was like washing my hands every time. I was like, I haven't touched it. And that is very dangerous, not only for workers, but for wherever that product is then getting sold onto.
But
so
people seem to like associate gulls with the seaside. The thing is with gulls at the minute, they're not in the seaside. They're all over the UK.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's things like the salmonella in the compost and things, but then you've got to look at all the other sides of things where, say they're blocking gutters and drains, grabbing rubbish, dropping it on the neighbours' gardens and stuff like that. And they get aggressive as well. Like, I had a call from one of my sites in Peterborough. A gull's just put a lady in hospital, an OAP in hospital from swooping and attacking her, made contact with her face, cut her face open.
Shit.
So, and there's videos going around of gulls now eating rabbits. Walloping rabbits down. They're not bothered, these things, and they're adapting. So, say people put it down to there being less fish in the sea. I wouldn't predominantly put it down to that. I'd put it down to the availability of food inland.
Right.
So they're opportunistic. It's harder to catch a fish than what it is to raid a bin.
Yeah, true.
So that's why they're moving inland and say landfills and stuff like that. That's why you've always got massive colonies. So it's great for me because then I can take a team of peregrines and disperse them and get paid for it.
Yeah.
So, but
did you see that video on, I think it was TikTok, of a seagull like waiting outside of Tesco's, and the doors opened, it went in and grabbed the sandwich, came out, opened the packaging, and then ate the sandwich. Like, what the fuck?
Why wouldn't you go do, catch a herring or go get a sandwich? You'd go get a sandwich, wouldn't you? It's probably got fish in it anyway. It's caught for you, it's prepped in a bit of bread.
It's mad. So they're adapting to our world because, essentially it's been making food more available. That's really interesting.
Every animal's doing it. Every single animal. It's like the people are making an absolute killing in fox control in cities at the minute.
Right.
Because there's more foxes in cities than countries, in the countryside. But, again, it's one of those things where you're coming up against antis all the time.
Yeah.
So you need to do it in the dead of night. You need to put out traps and things like that and try and not be seen because people don't understand the damage and the disruption that these animals cause.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're pretty much blinkered because the only fox they rarely see is one on a calendar in their kitchen.
Yeah.
It's big, fluffy ginger,
Yeah.
not the mange-ridden thing that's running around in the city, stealing everyone's rubbish.
So you breeding the birds, and then when I was chatting to you, you were talking about the fact that you also shoot as well.
Yeah.
Is that like a natural thing that comes within
So yeah,
the world
I started with an air gun, getting the odd pigeon for the falcons and then odd rabbit now and again. Then I put in for my FAC to get, full bore rifles. So I've got a 6.5 Creedmoor, a 17 HMR, and then a 20 bore shotgun as well. So the shotgun's used for in-flight things. So the rifles I use for, deer, rabbits, things like that. Again, for bird food, because if you're buying it in bulk, which I have to anyway because of the amount of birds that we've got, it makes more sense to get as much as you can for the price of a bullet.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
So, we go all over getting as much as we can. We've got loads of big chest freezers and we'll have days out and filling it up as much as possible to kind of put us on for a bit longer. Because something like a Stella Seagull at Ben's, it can eat half a hare a day, a lot of food.
Jeez.
The big monstrous things, these, so they eat a lot, a lot of food.
And I guess you want to, if you're around them and they're hungry, is that a little bit more dangerous?
Well, so when you're flying them, they've kind of got 3 different weights. So you've got fat weight, completely unresponsive to you. That's probably when they're most dangerous because they're not relying on you for anything. They're big, fat and grumpy.
Overfed.
Yeah, exactly that.
Right.
You don't want to know anyone when you sat there after a Sunday roast, do you? And then you've got a flying weight, which is the medium type weight, which they are responsive at. They do something for a reward for food.
Right.
And then there's kind of a hunting weight, which is a sliver less than a flying weight, where they're on it. They're fine-tuned, drink a kind of Red Bull type thing, where they're going to go hunt something.
Right. And the prize isn't necessarily what they hunt, is it? Or is it what you give them? Or?
It depends what you're kind of doing. If that bird's an out-and-out hunting bird and you're not then using it for work and relying on it to clear the sky, then you can let it feed up on what it's killed as a reward to know to do that again, because look what you got.
Yeah.
But if you're, say, flying on a landfill site and it goes and kills a gull, but you want it to do it again, then you wouldn't let it feed up on that because then it's full and unresponsive and it's not going to kill again because it's happy now, isn't it? It's fat and happy.
Yeah.
So every single flight you have to weigh up what you want as an outcome and whether you want it to go again or whether you want it to fly tomorrow. Because if you feed it up, say you've gone and killed a pheasant and it eats and fills itself right up, it won't be at the right weight to then fly again and kill tomorrow.
Okay.
So they're like gorge.
Yeah, to keep them lean and keep them keen.
Yeah, exactly that, yeah.
So just going back to the gun side of things, I've shot a few guns. It's kind of scary at the start, but you said you're quite a good shooter. I'm guessing, if you go out and practice or go to a range or do it, is it again predominantly male dominated?
Yeah, of course it is. It's the same as the mass majority of field sports. I think I did a podcast not long ago where she was saying that the percentage of women in falconry is even smaller than the percentage in shooting.
Oh wow!
So, and that's really, really small. You do come across the odd woman that shoots.
Yeah.
But again, it's normally the shooter's wife or something that's kind of tagged along and dabbled a little bit. Whereas I've got my guns. I'll go out on my own, do my own thing, because I enjoy it. I do really enjoy it. I do a bit of I'll zero it, you know, do a bit of target practice because I'm on 300 acres, so we can stretch out to about 1,000 yards.
Right, okay.
So, you know, ultra long distance for these guns. But then we'll go out, like me, my cousin, and his soon-to-be wife, Becca, we'll go shooting and just gather it up. It's fun to do, and obviously it's a lot better when you've got a good performing rifle and you're a good shot.
Right.
So I don't really go to ranges and things. I'm kind of out in the sticks straight away.
First thing I'm thinking is, like, nobody trespass on your land.
Good luck to them. I saw it needs one of those signs on my land. If you've seen it, you're better off sandpaper and a lion's ass with a pair of pork chop panties and then crossing this gate.
I love it, the ultimate deterrent. Yeah. I remember I went on a hen do, of all things, and we went to a shooting range actually out in York.
Yeah.
And I remember just going and the guy like looking at us like thinking, fucking hell, we're all slightly hungover.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of girls there that were just like, what are we doing? I remember the buzz that it gave me. Like, I don't like, he said to me, he was like, have you shot before? And I was like, no. And I think it was pure beginner's luck because I'd like follow, what is it called, the clay?
Yeah.
And then like close my eyes and shoot. It was like, or not have the right eye. It was like, I don't know what you're doing. It's working, but equally,
keep doing it, but open your eyes.
Yeah, it's kind of scary. But I think it's a great. Do you class it as a sport?
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's competitions and things in it, so it's got to be a sport.
Yeah.
But there's loads of different sectors to it. So that's a shotgun that you're shooting, and that's predominantly what you use for pigeons and pheasants, you know, high birds and things, where all the money is, basically.
Right.
And then there's rifles that I shoot, so they're, you know, you can lay prone, you can lay down with it, but it's the one that goes ultra long range.
Right.
A shotgun, the shot will go out open and spread.
Right.
So you've got a really short range of where it can be fatal at.
Oh, okay.
So the ones that you always see on the films where they go point blank to them and blow them with a shotgun. And then
okay.
the ones where you see where they're on a rooftop and they've got the big scope and everything and they're dialing it in, that's a rifle.
Right,
because it
okay.
can go like a mile.
So what's like the furthest you've shot at?
I've shot out to 1,000 metres.
Yeah.
So over in Wales, I was shooting with my Creedmoor. And this was one of those male-dominated days. You know, there was a load of old boys there. We went over just to have a go with some different guns. There was a load of guns lined up, like 6mm BR guns, quite big caliber guns. And there's a beautiful valley, you know, it rose up. And so great backstops for long-range shooting. I think I was on my Creedmoor, the 6.5, and then there was a few others lined up. And as I was shooting, a pheasant came across, and it was at 912 yards. And again, because I was ready to fire, they were saying, oh, you know, go, do it. But the pressure, at the time I was thinking, there's no way I'll hit that. And I thought, like, I don't, you know, back into the shell, I was like, I don't want to do that, And everyone just, you know, like grabbing your shoulder saying, do it, you'll do it, it's fine. Because the gun was performing perfect before that. But you know yourself, when the pressure's on, it's a different story, isn't
It
it?
shakes.
Yeah, I was thinking,
the heart.
everybody's watching. I could feel my heart through the stock of the gun. But, well, I sent it anyway, and it exploded pheasant. You know, a really good shot at 912 yards, and the pheasant were moving. So it was a moving target at 912, which is unheard of. You know, it was a fluke. It's got to have been a fluke, and I wouldn't do it again. But it happened, and it was in front of a good audience. So, you know, you can imagine what I was like when I stood up. I was thinking,
Drop the mic. There's no words needed.
Yeah, just walked up.
That's awesome. That's like one of those things, though, isn't it? It's like anything where you're surrounded by, when you're the only one, sometimes action speaks louder than words.
Yeah,
and knowing your shit with like the birds and the guns, like you've earned that over all the years that you've been training, that you've been surrounded by them. Would you say like some of the challenges you've had have been more internal than external, like second guessing yourself? Or do you think this slow confidence has just built you up?
I think a bit of both. I think the slow confidence and then starting up on my own and not having Ben as kind of the backup all the time when I'm, say, going to sites and getting contracts and things. You are forced again out of your shell because you will not get that contract and you will not get money in if you're not that person that fits the job, you know? And if you're quiet and timid and, you know, you're there and you're looking like that person in that shell, you're not going to get it because you're competing against other people from different companies while you're there. So you have to stand out. And what I noticed growing up with Ben is he was the best at his job throughout the entire time I've been in falconry because he stood out.
Right.
So if you were to look him up and watch his displays online, he's Jack the lad in the ring. You know, he pulls funnies, he's got a real good sense of humour, he gets people involved, and it's not just the, you know, fact sheet of what a bird can do, like your biggest bird's this, your fastest bird's that.
Yeah.
Everybody does that, but you've got to be different, you've got to stand out, and I stood out immediately because I'm a woman, and I turn up onto site doing really a man's job, surrounded by other men representing other companies to try and get this same job. So I'm already different.
Yeah.
So then you've got to follow that through, and your personality's got to come across a little bit different as well. You've got to grab it, you know?
Yeah.
Take the opportunity and run with it. So I think I've gone off there. I can't remember what the question was.
No, I was just talking, about challenges. I think, yes, I can relate to so much, like in the construction world, is that no one's going to push you forward, are they? Unless you're prepared to do that yourself.
No, you have to. And all these little setbacks that you might get, the little comments now and again, you've just got to think, well, I'm better than you anyway. It's water off a duck's back.
I mean, for you, like those comments, you've got like a killing weapon on your arm. Like, that's a bit of power.
Yeah, it still happens though. Like, I was on Facebook, and the amount of times, if they don't know your name, or say it's a man that's had a kestrel or whatever in his backyard, and he's Jack the lad now, you know, he's better than everyone else. Yeah. he doesn't know who you are. They will immediately try and shut you down because you're a woman.
Right.
You can't physically know more than me. And it's like, well, I kind of do.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to say anything. But that's why I came off Facebook, because of all that kind of stuff. It didn't bother me. It was just, I'd have ended up getting in way too many arguments.
Yeah.
So I just left, because I'm not the type of person to sit back and take it.
Yeah,
You
I'm
know?
the same. I'd be like,
Yeah. And then I'll write it, and then I'll just sit there and think, I can't call him that.
yeah, I do. You've still got people that you have to do business with, and I'm the same on social media. Like, if someone really gets my grab, my husband's always like, "Leave it, Sharon." I'm like, "No, I've got the last word."
I'm the exact same.
Yeah.
But you feel like you've got to prove something, don't you? Because you're a woman, and because you know that they're being like that a little bit because you are a woman.
Yeah.
You should be down there. You know,
Yeah.
you can't be like that in this kind of field. And you think, well, I can, and I am.
Yeah.
And I'll show you I am.
Yeah.
And I think you have to be like that, because if you're allowed to be kept down by comments like that or men like that, you're going to stay down.
Yeah.
And you won't ever progress.
Yeah.
So you need the confidence to stand up and be like, no.
Yeah.
You know, and say something about it.
It's that constant thing of having to, doesn't matter how much experience you've got, of proving yourself. And it does wear people down. Like, I speak to so many women that are like, I wish I could just go and do my job. And I'm like, I know, it's part of the remit now. It's just those first, week or whatever, 2 weeks, like if you're in construction on site or whatever job you're in, it's just like proving yourself. And it does wear you down, because you just think you're there for a job to get paid in a professional manner. That is an extra job that is exhausting on top of that.
Yeah.
So I hope in the future, like, are you getting more women into the industry?
I think a few more are coming in, and I think because of social media as well, because they're seeing the odd woman putting things out, say like my Instagram, I get a lot of women following that. Yeah. To kind of see what I'm up to and see how I got into it, and just general day-to-day life. And I think people take inspiration from that and think, why don't I just explore that avenue a little bit, see if I like it. And that's the way to do it, because before there wasn't social media, so you couldn't interact with another woman that did that thing that you wanted to do. Yeah. So it is more open and available. The information's there, the contacts are there as well. So I get messages now and again, how do I get into it? What can I do? And I think it's just opening the avenue in it. And I think more people should just take the jump and approach someone. People always say to me, what's the best way to get into falconry? And a lot of people would usually say, go volunteer at a centre. But it's not, because I know loads of people that have gone to try and volunteer at a centre to get that experience with the birds, and all they've ended up doing for years on end is washing bird shit. And they haven't picked up a single bird, and that's not what they volunteered to do. Yeah. So what I say is, rather than going and doing that with the extra other 50 volunteers that are also doing that, is find someone that you agree with their kind of morals, their way of conducting falconry, whether it's hunting, bird control, breeding, whatever, and approach them, message them, see if they'll take you on for a little bit. Yeah. Because that's what I've done recently. I've got a little lad called Charlie. He comes with me. He's a brilliant lad.
Yeah.
And he volunteered at a centre for a good couple of years. And then he approached me saying, you know, you're local. I like the stuff that you kind of do. Is there any chance I can come to work with you one day? I was like, yeah, jump on board. So now he comes with me twice a week. We go do a couple of sites. He flies my falcons. He never got to even fly a falcon before.
Yeah.
And it's hands-on. You know, he's a young lad, he's 17, and otherwise, they'd have never have pushed him into doing that. He'd have been kept at that level. You know, you're never going to get paid. You can stay here, spend as much time here as you want, but you're never going to progress. So why would anyone want to do that? And he's so thankful now.
That you've given him opportunity. And I think that's the one thing that happens so often. I saw it at work as well with apprenticeships. They would basically treat them like, no, you stay there, you don't do this. And then when you give them something, I used to give I gave him a GPS and he was like, I can't hold that, I'm not allowed to hold that. And I was like, how are you going to learn to be an engineer if you won't hold it?
Yeah.
And I don't understand this. It's like, it must be a male mentality of fear that they're going to take their job. I don't know what it is, or a power.
It's a dominance.
Do you think it's like a power?
Yeah, of course it is. They don't want them to be better. Keep them down there. Don't give them the opportunity to show or prove that they can be any better.
Yeah, it's madness.
Yeah, I know.
Because this is how things like this die out.
Oh, 100%.
Because you're not getting anyone in. Because why would you go and want to clear up birdship for the rest of it if you don't?
Who'd want to do that?
Yeah.
But no, it's the exact same in falconry. So there's like a big page. And there's always people, like newcomers, always coming in saying, you know, how do I get into it? As putting it as, say, a post where anyone can jump on it and comment. And they will go onto that person's profile and then come back and comment and tell them why that they aren't suited to do falconry because you live here, because you do this, because you can't spell. And it's like, these things are completely irrelevant. But it's attack straight away, and falconry is the worst for it. I've known loads of people want to get into it and then said, well, I put a post on here, and then I got, you know, BS through direct messages, through comments, and then there's always the odd couple of falconers that think they're, you know, big swingers. They'll write a comment, and then they'll get like 100 likes on it. So they've like, you know, their confidence is up here, and then this poor little lad or lass that just wants to have a dabble in falconry, they walk away and they think,
what's the point? Yeah.
Why would anyone want to do that?
Yeah.
So yeah, I came off that, and I try to make my kind of social media more approachable.
Yeah.
So everyone that messages, they always get a reply. I'll do whatever I can for them. I always give out advice. I'd never, you know, cut myself off from anybody. So say Charlie at the minute, he's coming on board with us. We've bred him a little falcon this year, so he's got his first falcon. So we went over to Ben's. I drove him to Ben, so he's met his hero. So that was brilliant. Really starstruck, shaking on the way there. So we turned up and we were ringing some chicks that we've bred, some little falcon chicks. So at the minute, Charlie's got a couple of Harris Hawks. You know, he's doing really well with them. He's brought them to site. Real confident birds. He's doing awesome. And then we were handing him these chicks down to put the rings on. So handed them down, and then Ben took a picture of him with this chick, and he was like, do you like that picture? And he was like, yeah, it's great. I love this falcon, you know, it's fantastic. He was like, well, find a name for it 'cause it's yours. And, you know, the excitement, the buzz and everything, it's just amazing to watch. And why would anyone not want to see something like that? Why wouldn't you want, you know, to see that passion come from a 17-year-old boy? Because it needs to be kept alive. Because falconry, if it carries on the way it is, it's a dying trade. You know, there's so many negative people out there that don't want to see any newcomers in. They want to just maintain this little group of people that majority are no good at what they're doing anyway.
Right.
And they just want to hold it there, which isn't. You can't progress. It needs to build and have newcomers put in fresh blood, fresh eyes. You know, and keep going that way, like bringing people like Charlie on board, because he's going to be working with me in October. So that's why we're kind of getting him in and helping him progress, because you need to, if you want something good out, you've got to put a lot of good in, haven't you?
Yeah.
So.
And also, it's one of these, like, kids these days don't get exposed to all these weird and wonderful jobs that, you know, if you've got general enjoyment in birds, what an amazing job to be doing that on a daily basis. And it's these traditional routes that gets rammed down kids' necks. And it's like, actually, you know, I think at school I remember someone bringing in some birds of prey. And it's one of those things when they bring them in, everyone's like, oh.
Yeah.
And like kids, you know, they're so excited by that stuff. And then it goes away and it's like, oh, remember when but that's not a proper job. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, this can be.
Instead, learn the square root of 66.
Yeah, which you're never going to need.
Yeah. Algebra. I can't remember when I ever used that.
Well, actually, I did. And I was like, fuck, why didn't I remember anything? I remember getting on site and going, trigonometry, bearings. Oh, fuck, this is a thought. I'd never use this shit. But predominantly, most people don't. So, yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's amazing. I think it's incredible what you're doing. Before we finish up, I just want to ask you about, on your Instagram, there's a picture of, is it your bird with Tyson Fury?
Yeah.
Is that for his latest? So that was like a promo
That was
thing?
the, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but Nagawa? That one in the Middle East.
Yeah. Was that the one, the fight that was on this weekend?
No, the one before that.
Right, okay.
So we got like a fastball call saying, have you got Peregrine? I was like, well, yeah, I've got a few. Sent him some pictures over, they picked a Peregrine, and there's... This peregrine that they picked out of this lineup of pictures is the biggest, blackest, most beautiful peregrine. I've got her tattooed on my back and plastered all over the side of my van. It's great, but it's the biggest fucking lunatic. Oh my God. So when they picked it, I thought, no, here we go. This is going to be a right laugh. So they gave us a day, date and time. Now, bearing in mind, like I was saying before, with you saying, so... Are they like happy with you when they're hungry, or are they grumpy when they're hungry? And I was saying when they're fat, that's when they're dangerous. So anyway, when they picked this falcon, it was sat in a pen, fat as lard, and it's already an aggressive bird. So I was thinking, so I've got to put this lunatic on Tyson Fury's fist in like 2 days' time. So I can't drop its weight to make it a little bit more approachable, because I'm not going to get much weight off it in 2 days' time. Oh. So I was thinking, well, what do I do? So I spent a little bit of time with her, and she was trying to rip my throat out the entire time, I tell you now, honestly. So no, and I was just looking at her thinking, I hope my insurance will cover
Yeah, I was just thinking, insurance.
So we turned up, and it was for that fight, and this thing, when I pulled it out of the box, it was just hissing and spitting and trying to kill me, and I was thinking, here we go. This is going to be on BBC News, breaking news at 5 o'clock. So I walked in, and the thing is, so she had a hood on, and then we were kind of like sat in the dark in some corner. We weren't allowed to see Tyson Fury. You weren't even allowed near the cameras until like 30 seconds before, and then only I were allowed in, only the person holding the falcon, nobody else.
Right.
That was it, like a set 5-10 people in the room at the time. So I got called in, and I'm thinking, I can't take this bird's hood off because it's going to go batshit. Like, it's going to see all these strange people, lights everywhere, Tyson Fury. So he was sat on a throne with a big robe on, his big hairy belly out, and did not want to talk to me whatsoever.
Really?
No, yeah. So obviously I didn't want to have a chinwag with him. I was just going to tell him how to hold this bird because it's a lunatic.
Yeah.
But didn't want to know. So I put the glove on. I was like, hold on to this thing, because if it gets off, it's off. Like, it's going down in here. I know you can fight, but this thing's fast. So, yeah, he didn't want to know. Sat the bird on him, and I kept her hood on. So that picture that you've seen, she didn't actually have her hood off. Right. So later, I had her on my fist, and I took her hood off. And then they've kind of CGI'd her head onto her body on Tyson Fury's hand.
Oh, okay.
So... yeah, they've done a good job of it. Like, I wouldn't have noticed, but so yeah, she was on his hand, on a normal falconry glove, and then they had to switch it over, and he put like a metal gauntlet on that was like a circle,
right.
Which you can imagine. She's got 4 spiky things that she's got to try hold on with on a sheer metal surface. So I'm thinking, yeah, what a way to throw another fastball in. Oh, she'll be all right, won't she? I was like, yeah, great. Here we go.
Never worked with kids or animals or boxers.
Yeah, definitely lunatic animals.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I put her on there. Tyson Fury again, not making any eye contact.
Was he like not scared of the bird at all?
No, not whatsoever, because you'd assume that bird's going to be an amicable falcon. She definitely was, but I didn't let on to that with anyone.
Oh, were you sweating profusely? Like?
Pretty much, yeah. I was just out of camera shot waiting to catch this thing, because it can take its hood off as well. So I thought, if she thinks it's nice and quiet, she might think, I'll just pop my hood off and take a look about. And I thought, I'm just there in the event that bird needs rugby tackling.
So it could have been a case of she went mental, and you'd have to like physically.
Yeah, well, you've got to imagine that bird's got a hood on. It's complete blackout. You can't see anything. So if it then got the hood taken off, there's these big flashlights everywhere. There's big camera arms swinging around her, above her, and in her world, she's the biggest, darkest, dominant thing there is. And then you're putting it indoors with all these things going on, it will lose its mind. It's like sensory overload.
Yeah.
So, and any bird would do that. If you go from complete darkness to throwing all that in the mix, anything would lose itself, you know? So fortunately, she didn't take her hood off. She sat really well. And then we put her on this gauntlet thing. Tyson Fury paid me no attention whatsoever. Yes, put the bird on my fist. Put the bird on his face.
It's going to eat you.
Yeah, stepped out the way, and all I was thinking was, if only you knew what you're holding. So anyway, they put the metal gauntlet on, and that's when she slipped a bit. And all she did was the littlest slip. Wings flew straight out, like whacked him on the head. And then he was like, oh, what do I do? What do I do? And I was thinking, yeah, now you listen. Now you listen. But yeah, she was fine, but the worst part of the day was having my head so close to Tyson Fury's hairy belly. So, but the bird did well. She did surprisingly well, fortunately. Even when her hood did come off, she took it all on board quite well. But that's only because she is quite a naturally confident bird. She likes to think she scares everything rather than it scaring her.
Right, okay.
So, yeah, that's the Tyson Fury falcon.
Wow.
She has my life every single day.
Wow, amazing. I love that. Well, listen, you've been incredible. Thank you for sharing your story. I think you're going to inspire so many other women out there to look into falconry and also just, I don't know, do something badass, because that is really
just
badass.
do something different. You want to stand out, don't you? Don't be, run-of-the-mill type stuff.
Yeah.
You want to be remembered.
Exactly.
Go throw a bald eagle about or something. Have a good time.
Although most people are like, shit, that's some like scary stuff. Right, I'm going to give you a wee gift with some stickers and a little T-shirt in there for you to say thanks for coming on.
Pride.
And yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. Cheers.